been found liable of sexual assault in court. Piers,
time out.
Piers, has Trump been found liable of sexual assault in court with
Trump was found.
So we're about to have a look at woke idiot Emma Vigeland taking a hard stance to allow biological men into women's private spaces, including restrooms. And not only that, she displays the inability to just stop flapping her gums and listen to Piers Morgan and have a civil debate. And I gotta say, man, I feel sorry for this woman's husband. I mean, talk about a white guy for Kamala, if anything. I mean, I don't know. I probably shouldn't say anything about him because, you know, it's just an innocent bystander as far as it goes. But I'm just saying, I feel sorry for any dude, any man that decides to try to partner up with this woman. I mean, it would be insufferable if it were me. Well, first off, it would never happen. But second off, we'd be divorced in about 3 minutes, right? So anyways, let's have a look.
Let me bring in Emma, because I want to play a clip. This is of this big Nancy Mace row. She's obviously introduced a bill to bar transgender women from facilities on Capitol Hill. This is a week after the Republican-elect Sarah McBride made history by becoming the first openly transgender person elected to Congress. Let's take a look at the Nancy Mace explanation as to why she's doing this.
This effort in response to Congresswoman McBride's coming to Congress?
Yes, and absolutely, and then some. I'm not going to stand for a man, if someone with a penis is in the women's locker room, that's not okay. And I'm a victim of abuse myself. I'm a rape survivor. I have PTSD from the abuse I've suffered at the hands of a man. And I know how vulnerable women and girls are in private spaces. So I'm absolutely 100% going to stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms. I will be there fighting you every step of the way.
Now, Emma, Sarah McBride replied by saying this is a blatant attempt from far right-wing extremists to distract from the fact they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. To which I say, well, I'm not even vaguely right, and I think it's wrong that biological men who've become trans women should be in womenens spaces.
You're not vaguely right, Piers?
No,
I would say I'm in the center. You agreed with Glenn Beck, one
I would
of the
say
furthest
that,
right commentators in the country repeatedly.
But rather
apparently something's happening
hang on,
because
I haven't finished
Bill
yet.
Maher and someone you saw on TikTok
I haven't finished yet. Let me ask you a question.
Being hysterical. Go ahead.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do not identify, and I know you believe a lot in self-identity. I do not identify as conservative right.
I don't know what that means.
I'm like Bill Maher. I'm just completely bemused by the woke left and how nuts you've all got, right? And I think this
Bill
election...
Maher's an old, rich libertarian who's bitter at the world.
Yet.
I mean...
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Right? Here's my question. If I, as a man who identifies as a liberal, if I can see why it's so wrong for biological men who have now become trans women to be in women's spaces, to be in women's sport, to be everywhere in women's lives where they historically were not biological men supposed to be, why are you not as exercised by this as a woman? I don't get it.
Why?
You're all about women's rights.
First of all, absolutely. I host a sports podcast. I care deeply about sports, and I believe that anybody that identifies as a woman should be able to participate in the sport as long as it abides by the particular bylines or guidelines,
You know it's wrong. You know it's unfair.
Said sports league. But actually, we're talking here about Nancy Mace, who loves a camera in her face and loves attention wherever she can get it. You know, I find it pretty disgusting that she is basically implying that this trans lawmaker, just by being in her presence in the bathroom, may rape her. I do choose to speak up for women's rights. I believe that I do so on my program, The Majority Report, regularly. And I'm disgusted that Nancy Mace has decided essentially to support Donald Trump wholeheartedly, who has been found liable of sexual abuse in court, and multiple of his cabinet appointments, picks, including Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz, have been credibly accused of sexual assault themselves. So apparently it's triggering for her because someone's genitalia may be slightly different in the stall next to her.
When you say credibly accused,
but it doesn't matter to her that Trump has been found liable of sexual assault in court. Piers, has Trump been found liable of sexual assault in court with
Trump was found guilty in a civil action. he denied it, as you know.
Found
and in case of
liable, exactly.
and the case of
Okay.
Gates and Pete Hesketh,
So the preponderance of evidence went in her
just keep
direction.
talking.
And she's been
All right, keep
and
talking.
he has been accused
Let
by
me know when you
dozens
finish.
of women.
Let
There
me
you
know
go.
when are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay.
I gotta love how Piers referred to the old timeout, right? Because she's a sports, podcaster. So he tried to speak her language and use the old timeout, which is just funny, right? I don't know. But she threw in Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth there, and I can tell you that Matt Gaetz was, she says, credibly accused. It wasn't credibly accused at all. He was investigated, and as far as I know, last I checked, being investigated does not mean you are guilty of doing anything, especially in America. It's innocent until proven guilty. And furthermore, that investigation was dropped and his name was cleared in 2023. So here at the end of November 2024, she's still repeating these, basically fake news lies, is an example of why the left is so far jaded. It's fringe ideology that they just can't let go of. And I mean, even just yesterday, or maybe the day before, Sunny Hostin was forced by her producers, probably the lawyers in the back, to apologize and retract her statement, which was very similar to what Emma just said. And so it's just incredible to me that these people don't ever learn. Like, are they not paying attention? They're on Piers Morgan's show to be somewhat credible, you'd think, but they just don't ever learn from the mistakes. They always got to double down on the talking points rather than trying to have a genuine conversation, listen to the other person, and then make a valid point. Because what she just said about Matt Gaetz is incredibly disingenuous, and it makes all the rest of her talking points, lose validity, less valid. But let's continue here.
I'm done.
When we have a debate, the customary for the host leads it, and you respond to questions, okay? If I may be so bold. The point is that Hesketh and Gates have categorically denied any wrongdoing, and none has been proven against them. In Trump's case, it was a civil action, as you know, not a criminal action. The criminal case against him was shuffling paperwork over an alleged one-night stand with a porn star. So it's not quite how you categorized it. Debra Lee, let me bring you in here.
Has this trans lawmaker been accused of rape? Has this trans lawmaker
No,
who
but
she's
actually,
barring
if
from
you
the
are a
bathroom been accused of
congresswoman,
rape?
if you're a congresswoman who survived sexual assault, you should be entitled to feel safe in the restroom.
So the presence of a trans woman in the bathroom. Oh gosh, I'm here in New York. There are a lot of multi-gender bathrooms, and I've gone to the bathroom next to a man. Oh my goodness, it was so fearful. What was I going to do
be quite
with the rest
fearful
of my life?
if I found you lurking next to me in a men's restroom. I'd feel fearful. Debra Lee, let me bring you in here. I just think
that is a ridiculous accusation, Piers.
I didn't make an accusation. It was a statement of fact. I would feel fearful.
You would feel uncomfortable? Why would you feel
uncomfortable? If you were lurking
uncomfortable?
around me in a men's urinal, damn right I'd feel uncomfortable.
Lurking? Who's lurking?
Well, what else would you be doing there?
Is this lawmaker lurking?
What else would you be doing there?
Going to the restroom.
I don't want you going to my restroom.
restroom.
Stick in your own restroom. For my safety, never mind yours.
Okay, but
even the David Pac-Man wannabe woke dude in the middle is laughing. I mean, she just needs to learn how to shut up and quit while she's ahead, which she's not even ahead, but still.
Would a man be lurking? Would a biological man, is he lurking next to you?
That's the whole point.
Why is there something inherently perverted about going to the bathroom? You right-wingers, and yes, I'm including you in this with this classical liberal BS, are so bad faith. It's incredible. You are linking sexual abuse and sexual assault to trans people inherently, and that is a bigoted statement.
No, I want trans people to have, I want them to have fairness and equality like the rest of us, just not where it erodes women's rights. But Debra Lee, you've been listening to this patiently.
But separate
All
but
right,
equal.
Emma,
Separate but equal.
we're four
right,
people
Piers?
on the panel.
I would like to respond to this.
Debra, your response.
Hey.
As somebody who grew up as an athlete, I would have been terrified if there was a man in my sports, in my leagues, playing against me. My own brother, who's 2 years older than me, anytime we would play basketball against each other, you would knock me down. And you say that you speak up for women's rights, but have you heard about the case in Virginia where a man put on a skirt, even though he went with male pronouns, and went into the bathroom and sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl, and now the parents are suing the school because they tried covering it up. You want to protect women? We're not saying that every single trans person has violent tendencies, but it's opening this this up that any single person, if there's no checks on this, any man can put on a skirt, say, I'm a woman, and go into the bathroom, and it's paving the way to make it easier for predators to attack women. And I don't know why you're so offended that women want to be able to use the bathroom without men in their presence. That is something that is totally normal and fair to ask.
I just find it amazing. Honestly, I find it amazing that on the left, if we talk about abortion, all hell breaks loose. Women should be protected. Women must feel safe. Women must have rights. Women should have autonomy over their bodies. And yet when it comes to sport, you're quite happy for biological males or... Let's put it this way.
You know what?
Put it this way. Hang on. You've got to let me finish a question.
I think it's a little different.
You've got to let me finish a question.
In parking lots because they can't
Sorry,
get their health care.
Emma, you really are not familiar with how these things work.
No, Piers.
You have to let me ask a question.
Should Yao Ming have been banned from the NBA because he's too tall? I mean, we've got to make it be fair in competition.
I tell you what's not fair.
He towered over these
when
other
you have
players.
when you have a boxer in the Women's Olympics boxing winning a gold medal who has male chromosomes and who beat up one of his opponents.
Okay, based on a Russian,
beat up one of his opponents, whatever you want to call this boxer.
That is what they determine.
Please stop talking when I'm talking. It's so boring for everyone watching. They can't hear us if you do that, right?
I mean, this is your whole shtick. I mean, you've been doing debates about the genocide in Gaza.
Am I going to have to mute you? Because honestly, everyone is sick of this now. Just please conduct yourself properly in a debate. Otherwise, we get nowhere. Right? Let me bring in Amala. You've been waiting patiently. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I just have a question. How many more anecdotes do you need of women and young girls being assaulted due to these laws and regulations for you to actually care about it? I've heard many stories. I'm in Los Angeles.
Until you give me a statistic.
In Los Angeles, we had a grown man here in Spa in Los Angeles. We had a grown man actually go into the women's locker room at a spa, expose themselves to all the women there, all of the young girls there. In Loudoun County, Virginia, you had a young girl who was raped in her school bathroom, a place where she is meant to feel safe, by a trans-identifying student. In the state of New Jersey, in their prison system, they allowed trans-identifying women to go ahead and move over to the women's facility. That ended up with 2 pregnant inmates. Be it consensual or non-consensual, it does not matter. These situations are 100% avoidable. And we are in no way characterizing all trans women as being predatory in nature by any means. It is to say that you are opening a door that needs to remain closed. And our comfort does matter. Our safety does matter.
By the way, Amala,
we agree
hang on, Emma, I'll come back to you. Emma, I'll come back to you. But also fairness matters too. So the United Nations 2 weeks ago had a report that said just under 900 medals have been won by trans athletes in women's sport, thus depriving biological actual women from winning medals because they are literally not as strong, not as powerful, do not have the endurance of the trans women athletes because they have male physiology. How can that be right?
Absolutely.
900 medals.
So Piers.
Yes. Explain to me.
First of all,
why don't you care?
First of all, why don't I care about that? One is the fact that this should be determined by those specific bodies. It's not at the top of my priority list.
Some are male, some are female. That's why we separated in the Olympics.
That women are bleeding out in parking lots. That trans youth are committing suicide at extremely high rates because of this exact kind of rhetoric, where you otherwise the gender identity of their choice.
What you mean, standing up for women's rights?
If trans care was available to all of these kids, if trans care was available to these kids, they would develop in the exact same way where none of this would even matter. And so back to what was being said before about these assaults on other people. Back to what was being said before about assaults on these people. I think they should be prosecuted, and definitely I'm completely against the idea that we should let someone slide just based on their identity if they assault somebody, which is why I'm sure everybody on this panel that is obsessed with this issue has been talking repeatedly over and over again about the rape in male prisons by male prisoners repeatedly against their same biological gender.
That's
in fact,
wrong too.
it happens.
Yes, it is.
Right. So how many?
But you know what you don't. You know what you never hear, Emma. You know what you never hear. You never hear. You never hear.
Not about this
Emma. You never hear about a trans man having an unfair advantage in male sport. Why is that? How come we never hear about that?
There are trans men because
you know why? You know why? Because they don't win.
It's a moral panic.
They don't win
like it was
because they have inferior physiology.
Just like it was about how
we don't hear about it because it's not an issue because they can't win.
No,
let me bring in. All right, let me bring in
because
Luke.
these are issues that are tittillating to white liberals or
Titillating.
white
How
conservative
weird
leaning
you would
women
say
in the
titillating.
suburbs. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, what's ridiculous is that you.
For you, it clearly
women?
is. You're not focusing on the more systemic rape issue in our prisons and in our
You haven't asked me about that.
our facilities
You
in this
haven't asked me
country.
about that.
But I just did. Why haven't you been talking about male rape in male
I think
prisons,
it's terrible.
which is way
Shameful.
more
All
right,
likely
let me
to
jump in here,
occur
Piers.
than a
Yeah, Luke,
trans
jump in.
Then dedicate more segments to it. Then dedicate more segments to it.
I'll
I
take
do
your
think-
advice on what segments we should be doing. We are the fastest growing YouTube channel in the world, so we're probably getting it about right. Luke.
Okay, yeah.
No thanks. I don't want to hear about that stuff. And the people that it's happening to, the men that that's happening to in prisons, don't want other people talking about that. It's insane that she would suggest that that's more important or just as important as allowing biological men into women's spaces. Got a couple things to say there, other than Emma Vigeland is completely insane. And if you agree with that, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell. Secondly, I have a couple questions about these biological men, these trans women that are trying to use women's restrooms. First of all, we all know that one of the great benefits of being a biological man, of being a boy, a man, is that we get to pee standing up. So when it comes to these biological men, these trans women using the women's restrooms, do they have the courtesy and take the extra time to sit down to pee? Because I'm just curious. 'Cause I mean, as a woman who has to do that, if they hear the stream next to them, are they just basically forced to, or is it natural for them to assume that that person just identifies as a female as a woman? It's insane. It's for me, it's an immediate red flag, right? And then secondly, one of the main reasons, other than women's rights, right? But one of the other reasons is safety. And the point that I'm trying to make here is about safety is that real men respect women's privacy in the restrooms, right? And so they don't go in there. And men have this biological thing into them where they are the protectors, right? They are the protectors of life, and women are the bringers of life, essentially. And when the biological man, when a real man is standing outside of the restroom waiting or whatever, they don't just go in there. You know what I mean? I've seen videos of dads who are sending their little girls into the restrooms, and they actually walk in or they yell and say, "Hey, is anybody in here?" And you either hear, a woman's voice come back or a man's voice come back, and you're like, "All right, daughter, you're not going in here." You know what I mean? And it's one of those things, because not only is it biological women, but it's little girls going in there, and there's a lot of men out there that do not want to put their children at risk, do not want to put their wives or sisters or mothers at risk. And so we need to be able to trust that the safe spaces for women are actually safe spaces for women who are, using the restroom, taking partially undressing, that type of situation. So anyways, I'm with Nancy Mace here. And before I go, I just want to briefly share this article from Fox News, which, it's Fox News, whatever. Speaker Mike Johnson announces new Capitol bathroom policy in response to the controversy over the trans House member. Johnson unveils a new Capitol bathroom policy as Mace introduces another bill to ban biological males from women's spaces at all federal property, which I support, right? And so House Speaker Mike Johnson announced a new bathroom policy for the U.S. Capitol on a Wednesday in response to controversy related to transgender Rep-elect Sarah McBride, the Democrat, of course, from Delaware, appears. Quote, all single-sex facilities in the Capitol and House office buildings, such as restrooms, changing rooms, and locker rooms, are reserved for individuals of that biological sex, end quote, Johnson said in a statement obtained by Fox News Digital. Quote, again, it is important to note that each member office has its own private restroom, and unisex restrooms are available throughout the Capitol. Women deserve women's only spaces, he added. Like all policies, it is enforceable, Johnson later told reporters, but we have single-sex facilities for a reason, and women deserve women's only spaces. We're not anti-anyone, we're pro-women, And I think it's important policy for us to continue. It's always been the, I guess, an unwritten policy, but now it's in writing. And I like what he said there about we're not anti anyone, we're pro women. And, you know, because there's this trans movement out there, the LGBTQ, backed by the Democratic apparatus, keeps talking about trans rights. And, you know, I don't think that these trans individuals have any different rights than, you know, you and I, a normal person, if I can say that nowadays. Good grief. But, you know, if they want the right to go into a women's restroom, that is them getting special privilege. And in my opinion, you know, that's not a right. You can't have a right that kind of supersedes another person's right. And so with that, I hope you guys agree. If you do, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Come visit me on Wednesday and Saturdays. I go live at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I'd love to see you there. But if I don't, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. You won't want to miss it.